Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Top 20 female founder Stephanie Melodia is an international keynote speaker, MBA lecturer, and growth advisor.
This is going to be a podcast exclusive here on The Twist. Like the formula, so for anyone
we'll do that.
who's more mathematically...
But it makes perfect sense.
You got it, right? Yeah. So for anyone who's a bit more mathematically minded, I've also got a Venn diagram for more kind of the visual, which kind of overlaps all these kind of factors. And in the middle, at the intersection, is luck. But essentially with that formula, this is honestly the reason why it doesn't fail, is crucially because of the R. So the way that it looks is O-R-K times T minus V-A to like give them all symbols, right? The R is the resilience. And so the luck formula failing, it doesn't fail if you've got a strong enough resilience muscle, because ultimately if you keep going, you're bound to succeed. It's that simple. The other reason why it doesn't fail is going back to the beliefs and the behaviors that I talked about. So it does take a lot of work. This isn't just going to happen by waving a magic wand. But if you've got the right mindset to stay optimistic, to keep going, then it really does become a case.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I would love to hear about what you do, where you come from, and how did you end up in Qatar for this podcast?
That's a great opening question. Well, where I'm from is a very interesting story, actually. I grew up on a desert island. So fun fact and interesting way to open up the story. So technically it's a volcanic island. It doesn't sound as good as a desert island, but I grew up on one of the Canary Islands off the coast of Morocco, basically. And I'm not going to recount the whole story from like childhood on this desert island, but very similar to you, I started my own marketing business back in 2017. And again, very similar to you, didn't have any external investors, fully bootstrapped, built this company from the ground up, and constraints force creative solutions. And so by not having any external capital, we had to find creative ways of doing business development, basically, right? So we didn't have the budget for ad spend, for any sort of paid media. And one of the avenues that it opened up for us was, well, me public speaking and going off on like conference stages. And that opened the door to this whole public speaking game. Now, a friend of mine introduced me to this concept of effectual thinking in business, which I'll explain really briefly, but it's kind of the opposite of everything that we've been taught. So we've been taught, especially in business, that you need to have a goal, you need to have a plan, you need to have a strategy. And effectual thinking is doing the opposite. It's actually starting without a goal and looking at what have you already got, what are the resources already available to you, and sort of seeing where they lead and sort of seeing what doors open. So without even realizing it, that was what happened whilst I was speaking on stages to promote my business and trying to land new clients. What actually ended up happening was discovering this whole other revenue stream and this reigniting this passion that I already had from when I was younger. So my deepest desire when I was a little kid was to be an actress. So being back on stage was like, oh my God, love this. And so the past couple of years, I've been doubling down on that. And that's actually what's brought me here to Qatar, which I'm very, very grateful and excited about. I've been brought over to give a keynote on the topic of hacking luck, which we can talk more about.
We're going to discuss.
Yeah.
So thank you for introducing yourself. If we mute your bio, okay? Top 20 founder, CEO, all of that. How would you introduce yourself? When you land in a new country and you don't have any local connections, you don't know a lot of people, how would you introduce yourself?
I love this question. It's very different, very thought-provoking, and it did make me sit and reflect. And I have to say that first and foremost, I am a curious soul in this human packaging. The curiosity is what comes first and foremost, especially the way you phrase the question around landing in a new place and no connections and everything's new. You get those neurons firing up. You're like, wow, what is this? And it really sort of sits in this, I don't know, this kind of more kind of human challenge of navigating, finding your way around. I mean, I didn't even have Wi-Fi coming here, right? So I felt like completely like my arms had been cut off and you've got to figure it out yourself. And I think there's such
That's the challenge. that you-
Yeah, like there's a thrill and there's a satisfaction from, those sorts of challenges, like thrown into the deep end, thrown into the unknown, figure it out. And so that curiosity is definitely first and foremost the top thing that I would say.
Nice. You've moved that we were discussing, like the shift in the revenue stream, the type of business approach that you want, like from the marketing, servicing kind of approach to mindset, public speaking, all of that. How hard was the change?
It wasn't super hard. I think that, it kind of goes back to that concept of effectual thinking. It's, I think where we're so driven and ambitious, I imagine just like yourself, we love to have goals and work towards them and achieve them. But you also have to have this openness to see like what's here. Again, it goes back to that curiosity and sort of explore, like, are there other opportunities to capitalize on? And for me, it was more about sort of letting go of, other people's expectations or thoughts, right? Just anything to do with other people, right? And so getting back to operating more from a place of authenticity and not obligation.
Okay. For that move, I've been trying to do that personally. I've always been into the servicing kind of industry where I'm helping, even if I'm getting paid for, but on a human behavioral level, this is like the mindset that I have. And when I started doing podcast, hosting some events, moderating some panels, I had to like kill a version of myself. Okay. Did you face any of these scenarios?
That's such a great question. And I think I'm trying to think of this one. Like, it's less about killing a part of myself and more, this is going to sound super cringe and cheesy, but
That's okay.
more about reconnecting with authentically who you are. Like, the word authenticity became such a buzzword like a few years ago, right? That it lost all meaning and it's become such a cliche to say now. And it's more about that. Like, this is what I'm saying about kind of operating from a place of that authenticity and not obligation, because you need to get back to like, what are you naturally great at? What are you naturally like? That is your competitive advantage right there. Like, what's something that lights you up, that you care about more than other people, that you are passionate about? I mean, these are all like age-old mantras, but they're cliches for a reason. So yeah, I think it's more just about less out of doing these things performatively or because you feel like you're supposed to or out of obligation, and more just like, I love doing this. I'm great at it. I'm just going to do me, and slay in my lane.
Okay. I was in your talks, you talk about hacking luck. What does that mean? And how do you live it? How do you teach it? Tell me about that.
Okay, so hacking luck is about stacking the odds in your favor. It's about taking one of the most powerful forces and reverse engineering it. So there's a whole plot twist here, which is actually hacking luck is making your own luck, right? Now, what this is backed up by is really interesting research. So this is not just an interesting conversation starter or pure conjecture. This has actually been backed up by sociologists, psychologists, even economists. There have been loads of these experiments and studies done, which basically reveal that out of the three core components of success, so talent, effort, and luck is the one that has the most bearing on our success or failure.
Okay.
So that's kind of the cornerstone. That's what kind of anchors the talk here. So it's anchored by this insight that luck is the biggest factor when it comes to our success. It does, first of all, open up an interesting conversation around like talent, effort, like gets people thinking. I can see your cogs kind of turning on that as well. The good news is that effort is a very close second place. Talent is at the bottom of the pile, because if you put in the effort, you can create this talent, right?
Yeah.
Or you can...
Like skills can be trained, improved, and everything.
Exactly. Or there can be a natural kind of inclination or talent, but you can nurture that. But the luck factor is the number one bearing. And so that's how I kind of open the whole theme. And then we dive into, okay, given the fact that it is the most important, how do we stack the odds in our favor?
are we equating luck to opportunity within?
Kind of.
Okay.
Well, it's having success in the opportunity.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely a part of it.
So it's like whenever there's an opportunity, you need to be ready for it in advance.
But it's also about like seeing the opportunities in the first place.
Yeah, okay.
It's being able to identify and recognize them. So I'll tell you really,
not waiting for them to just drop out of the sky.
100%. Like, you know, so this is where there's actually a confluence of many different factors. So in my talk, I break it down across kind of 4 key components across both your beliefs and your behaviors. So what we kind of, what we established first of all is getting some definitions straight. So the first definition is what is outside of your control. So what's outside of your control is, where and when you were born, to whom you were born, when you were born. That's completely, you had nothing at all to do with that, which, by the way, is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to any of us, because the chance of us being born when we did, to who we were born, is 1 in a number so big that I cannot even say it, right? Because it has 2.7 million zeros in it. So it's really interesting to just note really briefly that exactly the luckiest thing that we all have in common is just the thing that we all take for granted all the time. So that's the first thing to mention. So whether it's good or bad, it is outside of our control. So getting back to those definitions, where and when we were born, our demographics, what we were born like, all the rest of it. And then externalities like the weather, other people, recessions, like these are things that are outside of your control. So establishing that first and foremost, we can then focus our attention on controlling the controllables. And then that's where I break it down across the 4 components, across both your beliefs and your behaviors, because those are the things that you can control. So we can dive into that if you like. I'd be more than happy to talk about all of the things that kind of contribute to hacking luck.
When did you realize that luck can be engineered?
So I think subconsciously for many years, I always had at least like a respect for the graft, right? Like I've always had a strong work ethic. I have always been a bit of a hustler. And funny enough, it was actually when I'd first relocated to London, I'd left my hometown, I'd left all my friends, and I kind of set out to build this whole new life. And I remember in those early days, one of my best friends was like, "Oh my God, Steph, like you're so lucky." And I remember being really annoyed by that comment, but I didn't really know why. I was like, this is really, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. And I reflected on it a little bit and I was like, I'm not lucky. Like I've worked for this.
100%.
And I'm not saying like I deserve it, but it's like I've taken the risk. I am the one that's flown the nest. I have moved countries. I have come out to somewhere where I don't know anyone and built something from scratch, right? And then it wasn't only until just recently this year that I came across this whole concept of hacking luck, because I was doing research for another keynote, which was all around kind of resilience and success. Like all my kind of background is in entrepreneurship. Okay. And I came across this research piece by, I think Daniel Kahneman was the first paper that I came across, which was talking about how much luck has a bearing on your... Okay. And then I kind of went down that rabbit hole a bit more of all the research and experiments across lots of different psychologists and researchers. And so it's only been like this year that I've been developing and refining this content.
I think when someone calls me lucky, that's the biggest trigger that I...
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah.
But for like an external individual looking at it and not seeing like everything that you have been working on just to get that opportunity.
Yeah. It's like an overnight success takes 1,000 nights.
It's called luck.
Exactly.
Yes, we're lucky.
But it is your perspective. And, this is the whole kind of belief and mindset side of the talk that I talk about, which is, this is one of the huge bits that you can control, even though we don't always really realize it. But it is that choice over our perspective, our perceptions, how lucky or unlucky we think we are. And the truth is that whatever other kind of belief that you want to ascribe to it afterwards, whether you want to call it destiny, manifesting, fate, religion, spiritual, like whatever it is, each to their own, that's, fantastic. But ultimately, it's how are you going to play games that you can win? Like, how is that going to help you to cultivate a more positive and open mindset? How is that going to help you to take more risks, to put yourself out there, to put in that effort to make luck
Yeah.
come your way, right? Do you see what I mean?
Sure. Okay. Coming to the MENA region, mainly GCC as well, we're often branded as emerging markets, rising markets, these type of narratives. Is there something that you would not say on stage here because you find outdated, lazy? We don't believe that. It's just what's being said, like in the media and mainly within our industry as well. Always called, emerging markets.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that question. For me, it's the term Middle East that I don't like using and I wouldn't use on stage, or at least I try and make a concerted effort to avoid it. The reason being is that it's a Eurocentric term. Like it's
middle compared to Europe.
Compared to us, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the whole map thing. It's like, obviously I'm from the UK. It's a tiny island, but of course it's blown up proportionately on the map. So that's one thing I would definitely I try and avoid using that term. I don't like saying Middle East.
Okay.
Just really because of that, because of the Eurocentrism to it.
Okay, nice. You work with a lot of underrepresented founders in this region. Who do you think we're still not seeing, even when they're right in front of us? We have a lot of startup accelerators here, a lot of even like in QDB. Have you seen or worked with underrepresented founders here?
So not that I've worked with directly, but an observation that I've had during my wonderful visits here have been the Uber drivers, the hospitality workers, the people who help carry my cases, these people who have uprooted their lives, who I've seen from my perspective, more often than not, they seem to come from India, Bangladesh, these other kind of parts of the world. They've done the same thing that you and I did. Like they've left their country, they've left their home life, their families, their friends, everything that they've known and they're used to, and they've risked it all to come to better themselves, to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And so using an Indian Uber driver as an example, like they're hustlers, right?
Yeah.
Like they're finding ways to make their own dollar bill, like to make their own money. They're putting the hours in, they've got the work ethic, the drive, the risk tolerance. And I think that there is that unconscious bias, right? Like whether it is the color of their skin, like their accent, the way that they speak. I think that if we can see maybe if we can first step is make those unconscious biases conscious and recognize like, are we being judgy? Are we kind of looking at these people in the wrong kind of way? And recognize actually this untapped entrepreneurial spirit that we've got right here. That for me has been the biggest observation.
Okay, that's beautiful. Did your luck formula ever fail you?
The great thing about my luck formula is that it never fails. Of course, I would say that. The truth is that there's two key things to it. So if I first of all break down the luck formula, and this is going to be a podcast exclusive here on The Twist. I haven't shared this publicly on a podcast before, but having done all this research and reading into all these experiments in the luck factor, I've devised my own formula. The luck formula is a function of optimism multiplied by resilience. Resilience is calculated as risk-taking over time, subtracting victimhood and anxiety. Now, this does make more sense to see it written down, so maybe we can put up a screenshot of the formula. So for anyone
we'll do that.
who's more mathematically...
But it makes perfect sense.
You got it, right? Yeah. So for anyone who's a bit more mathematically minded, I've also got a Venn diagram for more kind of the visual, which kind of overlaps all these kind of factors. And in the middle, at the intersection, is luck. But essentially with that formula, this is honestly the reason why it doesn't fail, is crucially because of the R. So the way that it looks is O-R-K times T minus VA to give them all symbols, right? The R is the resilience. And so the luck formula failing, it doesn't fail if you've got a strong enough resilience muscle, because ultimately if you keep going, you're bound to succeed. It's that simple. The other reason why it doesn't fail is going back to the beliefs and the behaviors that I talked about. So it does take a lot of work. This isn't just going to happen by waving a magic wand. But if you've got the right mindset to stay optimistic, to keep going, then it really does become a case of how you're perceiving the world around you. Because the truth is, there is no singular objective truth, right? So a quick example that I use in my keynotes is I use this visual of how we see the world versus how birds see the world, for example.
Okay.
Right? So birds see completely differently. If anyone's got any dogs, they'll know that dogs hear completely differently to us. There's also the coriander gene, which if anyone has got that, coriander, the herb, it tastes, I think cilantro for North Americans, right? Like it tastes disgusting. It tastes soapy. So this point is around, there is no objective singular reality. There's only our own perceptions of everything, right? And so that's where it goes back to the controlling of the controllable. Because if you start to cultivate that mindset, which very much comes from this world of entrepreneurs, like every single entrepreneur has this mindset, then whatever comes your way, you have a choice of what story you want to apply to what's happening for you, not to you.
Okay. I like that.
So like, for example, my show is called Strategy and Tragedy.
Yeah.
And
I love the name, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, part of the name is the traditional closing question that I ask all my guests is, what's one tragedy that's taught you an unforgettable lesson? And I've done about 150 episodes at this point, right? That means I've heard 150 tragedies. I've heard like the worst of the worst, right? I've heard people, like literal tragedies, like people losing their mum or one of their parents when they were younger, like losing a loved one. Like, I don't think there's anything much worse than that, to be honest, you know. And it's what they then do with it. Like, of course, I'm not undermining it. I'm not saying it isn't tragic and sad. Of course, it's absolutely those things. But the people using that as an example that that's happened to, has given them so much more of a respect for life that I'm kind of envious of, if I'm completely honest. You know, I obviously, touch wood, don't want to be in that situation, but they do have this next level understanding that I don't have, which is, you know, cognitively, of course, I know our days are numbered.
Yeah.
But these people, they really get it. They lived it.
Yeah.
They've lived that tragedy, which has made them realize that life matters, that every moment counts, that the time we've got on this planet is limited. And so again, they've chosen to make their life matter, and they've chosen to work on their legacies and their impact. So again, not arguing with these horrible tragedies, but going back to your brilliant question around, you know, the luck formula failing, it goes back to what are you going to do with it?
How you perceive it and how you act upon it.
Exactly.
Let's say I give you a plot twist tomorrow, something completely off plan. How would you recognize it as luck in disguise?
Love that question. These are really great questions. This is also such a treat to be on the other side of the podcast table, you know? It's usually me interviewing, so this is a luxury for me. So I recently discovered this interesting concept in psychology, and specifically within this theme of luck. Okay. And it's called upward counterfactual thinking. Now,
upward counterfactual thinking. Okay.
Upward counterfactual thinking. This is a very sophisticated way of basically saying glass half full. Okay. All it means is that you have cultivated the mindset that whatever is happening to you, for you, like your great question, if this plot twist comes along tomorrow that's completely unexpected and throws you off course, upward counterfactual thinking is the idea that whatever is happening to you is you're better off than all the other worse alternatives. Okay. And this is where it gets very easy to apply like spirituality, religion, destiny, whatever else you want to put personally on top of that, whatever floats your boat, whatever helps you. But it's that recognition that it could be a lot worse, that it could be for a reason, that maybe there's a lesson here. And I'm not saying that it is destiny or that, you know, it's written in the stars, but.
Okay. If we go to the topic of women empowerment, what's one empowerment narrative for women in business that you think actually disempowers them, and especially in our region here as well? Doing it all yourself. Okay. I think that's the worst thing. I think that's the worst for everyone. For everyone, yeah. Not just women. Yeah. Trying to do it all yourself. Trying to think that you need to be wholly self-sufficient, that you don't need anyone else's help, that it's a weakness to ask for help, to not delegate.
that is absolutely the most disempowering thing that I think is sometimes dressed up as the opposite. I think actually we need to ask for help, whatever it is. There's the saying, no man is an island. We need each other. We need our support, whether it's at home and family, personal life, whether it's in business. You need help. You need other people.
You see that a lot in business, and especially it's because of, in my opinion, it's because of the media and how we got like brought up and like self-made. Personally, I don't believe anyone is self-made. Someone somewhere helped you along the way.
100%.
I would never call myself self-made.
Right.
When I was young, what my dad taught me, that helped me out.
Right.
My partner helped me out.
Yeah.
My brother helped me out. My best friend helped me out. I'm not self-made.
Yeah.
So, and I think the fact of asking for help is crucial.
Yeah.
And that's what's lacking.
Exactly. 100%. I completely agree. And the same for me. And I think one of the best examples I can give is with my personal life. Like, I would not be here whatsoever if it weren't for my partner, who supports me in so many different ways. Right. And I think that, I think that there's almost this like, this faux nobility to the martyrdom.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, why? Like, for what? Like, what are you proving and to who? You know? And I think it can be hard. I think also, like, if you are a hustler and you do have a strong work ethic, I do also recognize from my own story, right? And I'm sure you're similar with this, is like, it is hard to ask people for help in the beginning, because like you want to do it, you want to figure it out. And it's not a stubbornness. I think it's just because, you know, you kind of get that energy from it. But you have to recognize that sometimes you're cutting off your own nose to spite your face in doing so. And that actually you get so much further with the support of others. And you know what? Like, I'm so at a point in my life as well, Ellie, where I'm like, don't make things harder for yourself than they need to be, you know?
Exactly. We already have a lot on our plate, so.
I feel like this is the way we both talked about like our earlier business ventures and previous failures and learnings from that. And I think that that's a big one for me, is like, why? I definitely noticed in my life, I've always kind of taken the harder option. And I think it's because, you know, I've liked a challenge. I want to rise to the challenge, but it doesn't always need to be that way. You don't need to make things harder for yourself.
100%.
There's other people who want to help you. Let them help you.
Exactly. If we move to the startup world, and a lot of people give advice to young founders, young entrepreneurs, what's the most unethical advice you've heard given to a startup that sounded smart on stage? I've seen a lot of this happen.
Okay, so I'm not completely sure. I was giving this one a lot of thought, and I'm not sure. I feel like the first one that comes to mind is like the hustling, like it's kind of similar to what we were just talking about. Like,
wake up at 2:45 a.m.
ridiculous. But you said you've heard a lot, so you tell me what you've heard.
It's mainly the like no life. Not having a life. Like if this is not you, you're not gonna enjoy it. You're not gonna be able to deliver. And I've done that to some of my partners in some startups that we've done. I was comparing like how I work and like my efficiency with someone else. And for me, my number one priority in life is my business. Not everyone's like this. Some people just want to have a hobby, do something else, and they might perform better than me if they have access to that. So just throwing like absolutes. This is what I find like, okay, we throw absolutes and then you have 100 like new founders in front of you, and they're all gonna do that. They're all gonna succeed if they follow your advice. This is like,
I think what this opens up more interestingly is the fact that there isn't as much space for the nuance in conversation today. And this is why the podcasting format is so fantastic. And I'm really happy to see the rise in podcasting happening, because it's one of the few spaces that we have now that allows for this long form content, that allows the breathing space to have these more nuanced conversations. Because if you're throwing out these clickbaity absolutes, to your point, whether it's on stage, whether you just want to get kind of a viral clip on social media. Like, the truth is like, you know, no one wants to hear it, but it's in the gray area. It's nuanced. It's not black and white. It's not absolute, but people don't want that. Like, people want the shortcuts, the quick answers. Oh, okay, I'll get up at 2:45, you know? And it is just ridiculous. Yeah. I think the other quick thing that I want to mention as well is that I want to actually, it very nicely feeds back into the luck formula here, because this mantra of the 5 a.m. club, hustling, making your business your number one priority, making it your full identity, is dangerous for many, many reasons. But one of them I'll just talk about is the key component for hacking luck is to have an open-minded enough attitude, so that we talked before about, you know, grabbing opportunities. Well, first and foremost, you've got to identify the opportunities. And if you are head down, like, you know, just kind of bogged out, focused on your business,
you'll miss it.
Just foot to the gas, you don't always notice these opportunities. And so it's a kind of counterintuitive strategy, actually, to say, like, have hobbies, do other things, like have a life outside of your business, because not only will they potentially open up more of these opportunities, but they're opening the valve, the pressure valve in your brain, to provide more of this open-mindedness for you to think more clearly and get that perspective, especially as a CEO, as a leader.
I love that. AI. Everybody.
The bubble. Yeah. It's about to burst.
Nvidia's gonna crash.
Yeah.
Stock market's gonna go down. There's a huge pressure being put on founders, on companies, on everything, like, to AI, like digitalize, push everything. You need to, like, cut cost, do all of that in AI, especially in the sectors where it's feasible. So I'll give an example. Let's say I'm in hospitality, restaurants, whatever. If I'm making a drink, I need a bartender. Okay, I can have a machine do that, just plug some stuff. I'll have the same result. But are you, as a consumer, going for the drink or for the experience? Mm-hmm. Okay,
that's a great example.
So in the creative industry, in your industry, what is something that you don't want to see replaced by AI?
Mm-hmm. I think an AI hologram of myself public speaking on stage. Now, hear me out, because it would be kind of cool, okay? And I'm into fashion, and I love how Alexander McQueen, he pushed the boundaries of innovation when he did a hologram of Kate Moss. I don't remember the exact year, but like in the 2000s. Okay. And it made like fashion headlines. It was a great example of like tech innovation and the fashion, the creative world. And it was this incredible, it's a really beautiful clip. If you can find it, I'll send it to you afterwards to like insert a clip. It's this really ethereal, incredible hologram of Kate Moss like floating above the catwalk. So like that's cool. And there's been in music, we've seen this with like ABBA and Gorillaz and doing these hologram versions of themselves. The reason why I've chosen this answer for my track in public speaking is because being here now on the other side of the world, I'm like thousands of miles away from home. It's kind of crazy, right? That like I've been put on a plane and my person has been flown out here to give a 45-minute talk to a room of attendees. And so like, this was kind of on my, and the reason, what prompted it more for me was one of the other incredible speakers as part of this boot camp tuned in via Zoom. And so that was the main thing that was making me think, I was like, oh, like I could have also just like stayed at home and like done a Zoom. And the thing is that I noticed in the room, the engagement levels were not the same.
Totally different.
More people, and the guy was fantastic. So absolutely zero shade to them. Their content was great. It was a really, really interesting presentation. But the reality was that being there in the room, from the speaker perspective, like you're not there to read the room. Like I kind of pride myself on having very high emotional like EQ levels, and I pick up on like microfacial expressions, people's reactions, the energy. Like I'm very instinctive as well, right? So I can feel the energy, and I can be like, if things are lagging, I can pick things back up again. If I've got everyone hooked, then I know that like this is a good bit of content. If I'm seeing people get out their phones, I'm like, okay, you know. But from the audience's perspective, while I was sat enjoying this other presentation, I noticed obviously so many more people like checking their phones and opening their laptops. And the thing is that you're not really there in the room with the person. You don't have that energy. You don't have that connection. And if I'm completely honest, you know, I'm going to call it out. It's like, it would be so rude to also just like sit there and be on your phone while the public speaker is like presenting to you right there. And it's kind of like road rage, right? Like people wouldn't behave the way that they do, like honking behind their steering wheel if they didn't have the protection of the car around them, you know?
100%, yeah.
And so it's like, it's also a bit of that social contract for you to like make that effort to behave yourself a little bit more, be a bit more politer, like not be on your phone. And it does force you to have to pay more attention. So that's something where I'm like, I don't think AI will or should replace me in that respect.
That's beautiful. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to have you again whenever you're in Qatar.
I'd love it. In your new studio.
Yeah.
I'd love to check it out.
Jan.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
I'll be back. Thank you so much for having me.